Tonight in Boston, beneath the championship banners in the bright parquet floor of TD Garden, the game resumes. But the story unfolding is about something larger than basketball. Less than 10 months ago, on a spring night that suddenly felt silent, Jason Tatum collapsed to the floor in pain during a playoff game against the New York Knicks. An Achilles tendon torn, a season over in an instant, and perhaps some wondered a year of his prime lost to uncertain. For the Boston Celtics, a franchise that has long lived in the shadow of history, from Bill Russell to Larry Bird to Paul Pierce, the question lingered: when would their present return? Tatum's absence became the backdrop to an unexpected chapter. Boston kept winning. Jaylen Brown elevated his play into the MVP conversation. Derek White orchestrated the offense with calm precision. Young players grew into larger roles, and head coach Joe Mazzulla insisted from the start this season would not become a pause in ambition. Still, through every victory and every highlight, the same question hovered over Boston's season. When will Tatum return? Tonight, that wait may finally end. Across the floor, the Dallas Mavericks arrive with a different kind of story. A team leaning into youth and new opportunity. Rookie Cooper Flagg, already the centerpiece of Dallas's future, has shown flashes of the brilliance that made him one of the most anticipated prospects to enter the league in years. Alongside him, the interior presence of P.J. Washington and the playmaking of Ryan Nembhard are helping shape a Mavericks team building its identity in real time. But tonight, the spotlight inevitably returns to one man. If all goes expected, Jason Tatum will step back onto an NBA floor for the first time since that devastating injury. Less than 10 months removed from surgery and months of quiet, relentless rehabilitation. In the modern NBA, it is an almost improbable timeline. Yet the game has always had room for improbable returns. For Boston, it means more than simply adding a superstar back in the lineup. It means restoring the centerpiece of a championship pursuit. For the league, it means the reappearance of one of its defining talents, a six-time All-Star, an Olympic gold medalist, and a player still squarely in his prime. And for the fans inside this voting tonight, it may feel like the turning of a page. Because in sports, as in life, history is not written only in championships and records. Sometimes it's written in the moment a star walks back onto the stage. And tonight in Boston, beneath the banners of TD Garden, the next chapter begins. The Mavericks, the Celtics, and perhaps the return of a title chase. Greetings from our studios. I'm Ryder Bullock. Welcome to the Hardwood Report, where tonight in Boston the story stretches well beyond the numbers on the scoreboard. On paper, it's a matchup between two teams heading in very different directions. The Boston Celtics 41-21 sit second in the Eastern Conference and have been one of the league's most consistent teams all season. The Dallas Mavericks arrive at 21-41, struggling through a 5-game losing streak and enduring a difficult road campaign. But tonight's headline is not merely about standings or statistics, it's about return. Less than 10 months ago in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals against the New York Knicks, Jason Tatum collapsed to the floor with a torn Achilles tendon, one of the most feared injuries in basketball. For many players, it can take a full year or longer to return, and sometimes they never quite look the same again. Yet tonight, the 6-time All-Star and 5-time All-NBA forward is expected to step back onto the floor for the Celtics. And the timing could hardly be more intriguing. Boston has thrived even in his absence, winning 7 of its last 9 games and establishing itself as a contender in the East. But adding back a player who averaged nearly 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists last season could alter the entire championship equation. Across the floor, Dallas is searching for stability. Injuries have reshaped their season. Kyrie Irving out for the year. Derek Lively's second lost as well, leaving much of the offense burden on rookie standout Cooper Flagg, who continues to impress with over 20 points per game and an all-around presence that suggests a bright future in the league. The Celtics won the first meeting between these teams last month, 110-100, with Jaylen Brown scoring 33 points. Flagg answered with 36 for Dallas, a glimpse of the star power that still remains on both sides. Boston is favored tonight, and the numbers say why. One of the league's best rebounding teams, strong at home and efficient on both ends of the floor. But statistics rarely capture moments like this one, because tonight in Boston isn't just about a regular season matchup in early March. It's about resilience, recovery, and the return of one of the NBA's brightest stars. Jason Tatum is back. And of course, tonight's action doesn't end here in Boston. Later on, our doubleheader continues deep in the heart of Texas, where the San Antonio Spurs will try to keep one of the Western Conference's hottest runs alive when they host the Los Angeles Clippers. The Spurs come in at 45-17, second in the Western Conference, and riding a 6-game home winning streak. Over the last 10 games, they've been nearly unstoppable, going 9-1 while averaging more than 121 points per night. Their offense thrives in transition, third in the West in fast break scoring, and much off of that begins with the remarkable presence of Victor Wembanyama, the 7-foot-plus phenom, continues to redefine what a modern NBA big man can be, averaging nearly 24 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocks a game, while anchoring a Spurs team that looks increasingly like a legitimate contender in the West. Across the floor tonight, the Clippers arrive fighting for a playoff position at 30-31, currently 9th in the conference. They remain dangerous, though, particularly from long distance, where they rank among the best three-point shooting teams in the West. And when you talk about the Clippers, you inevitably begin with Kawhi Leonard. Over his last 10 games, he's averaging nearly 26 points per night, shooting just under 50% from the field. A reminder that when healthy, Leonard remains one of the league's most methodical and efficient superstars. San Antonio has been one of the fastest-paced teams in the conference. The Clippers, meanwhile, prefer a more deliberate style, relying on defensive pressure and perimeter shooting. Two different philosophies, two teams with something to prove, and a building in San Antonio that has become a very difficult place for visiting teams to win. So after Mavericks and the Celtics in Boston, stay with us. Later tonight, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Los Angeles Clippers taking on Victor Wembanyama and the surging San Antonio Spurs, the second game of our double header. More on these games in a moment, but first, here's what's happening in the NBA. We'll begin in Arizona, where Phoenix Suns forward Dillon Brooks was arrested early Friday morning in Scottsdale on suspicion of driving under the influence. Police officers conducted a traffic stop about 1 a.m., and after an investigation, Brooks was taken into custody. He was later released following the booking process roughly 2.5 hours later. The Suns released a brief statement saying they are aware of the situation and are gathering more information, but declined further comment. Brooks is 30 years old and has already been sidelined recently with a fractured left hand suffered in late February, and he has missed Phoenix's last 5 games. Despite the injury, Brooks has been enjoying one of the most productive scoring seasons of his career, averaging just over 20 points per game, nearly 7 points higher than last season. He joined the Suns this offseason in that blockbuster deal that sent Kevin Durant to Houston. Elsewhere around the league, another chapter was added to one of the most remarkable careers basketball has ever seen. LeBron James has now made more field goals than any player in NBA history. Los Angeles Lakers star passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with his 15,838th career basket Thursday night in Denver, adding yet another milestone to a resume that already includes the league's all-time scoring record. James, now with more than 43,000 career points, reflected afterward on the significance of seeing his name alongside the legend he once grew up watching. His coach, J.J. Redick, perhaps summed it up best, comparing LeBron's career to a legendary music catalog, one that somehow continues to grow after most artists would have finished their greatest hits. And finally, in Washington, a new era is beginning, even if it's still is finding its rhythm. Trae Young made his long-awaited debut for the Wizards after being acquired earlier this season, playing under a minutes restriction and finishing with 12 points and 6 assists in a loss to Utah. It was Young's first game action since late December, and while the Wizards fell again, flashes of the creativity and playmaking that made him one of the league's most electric guards were on full display. For Washington, the hope is that those moments will eventually translate into something larger as the franchise continues its rebuild. And those are some of the stories trending tonight across the NBA as we get you ready for Mavericks versus Celtics. You know, every so often in sports, the calendar moves forward, but the moment that defines a season seems to arrive all at once. For the Boston Celtics, that moment may be tonight. Jason Tatum, six-time All-Star, All-NBA selection, and the centerpiece of Boston's modern era, is expected to make his season debut against the Dallas Mavericks. And the remarkable part is it's not merely that he's returning, it's when less than 10 months ago, inside Madison Square Garden during Game 4 of a playoff series against the New York Knicks, Tatum suffered one of the most feared injuries in basketball, a torn Achilles tendon. Historically, it is the sort of injury that can sideline an athlete for a year or longer, and in some cases, alter the arc of a career. But almost immediately, Tatum set his sights on something ambitious. He wanted to return this season. The morning after the injury, before swelling could delay the procedure, he underwent surgery, a decision shaped in part by studying the recovery of one of his idols, Kobe Bryant. The plan was aggressive, the work relentless, and perhaps the greatest hurdle was not physical, but psychological, trusting that the body would respond when the moment came. Now, that moment has arrived. What makes Tatum's return even more intriguing is the team he returns to. The Celtics were widely expected to take a step back this season. Several key contributors from the 24 championship run have departed. Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday are no longer on the team through trades. Veterans Al Horford and Luke Cornett in free agency are no longer with the team. And of course, Tatum himself had been absent since last spring. Yet somehow, Boston has thrived. Jaylen Brown has elevated his game to near MVP levels, carrying an offensive burden unlike any point in his career. Derek White is enjoying the most complete season of his tenure. Peyton Pritchard has blossomed into a steady playmaker, and young players, Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman, Hugo Gonzalez, have injected energy into the rotation. The result? A team that sits second in the Eastern Conference with only weeks remaining in the regular season. And now the missing piece returns. Of course, reintegration is rarely seamless. Tatum has been the Celtics' primary offensive engine for years, leading the team in shot attempts season after season. Brown, in Tatum's absence, has assumed that role with remarkable success. So finding the right balance between the two will be one of the most fascinating storylines of the final weeks before the playoffs. But if history teaches us anything, it is this. Great players rarely make good teams worse. More often, they elevate them. So tonight, when Jason Tatum steps back onto the floor, the significance will stretch beyond the box score. It will represent resilience, the kind that professional athletes quietly chase through months of rehabilitation in doubt. And it will represent possibility, because a Celtics team that has already exceeded expectations now welcomes back the player who not long ago defined them. Sometimes a season is shaped by what a team loses, and sometimes by what it suddenly gains back. On most nights in March, an NBA game between a 41-21 Boston Celtics team and a Dallas Mavericks club struggling through a difficult season might be a little more than a footnote on the league's calendar. But tonight, the story is something altogether different. Because after 10 long months of rehabilitation, uncertainty, and quiet determination, Jason Tatum may finally step back onto an NBA floor. Last May in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals against New York, Tatum's Achilles gave way, the sort of injury that historically ends seasons and sometimes alters career. for a player in the prime of his powers, 6-time All-Star. It was a crucial interruption to one of the league's brightest trajectories. And yet, here we are. And we've talked about it time and time again. And I'm going to keep talking about it. Boston has managed to thrive without him, sitting second in the Eastern Conference. That's mind-blowing to me. But the return of a franchise cornerstone changes not only the Celtics' ceiling, it changes the emotional temperature of the building tonight. Across the floor, Dallas arrives in a very different circumstance. The Mavericks have dropped 15 of their last 17 games, but they too welcome back an intriguing piece. Rookie phenom Cooper Flagg, who returned yesterday after a foot injury and immediately flashed his remarkable versatility. So tonight becomes something interesting. A team rediscovering its star, another searching for stability, and a young player hoping to prove he belongs on the same stage. So, the stage is set. It is. The Boston Celtics hosting the Dallas Mavericks. Here are tonight's keys to the game. Number one, how does Boston integrate Tatum? The Celtics don't need Tatum to be the 30-point version of himself tonight. What they need is rhythm. Expect limited minutes and carefully manage rotations. But if Tatum moves comfortably, hits a couple of jumpers, and simply looks like himself again, that alone could lift Boston's entire offense. Number two, Jaylen Brown is going to set the tone. Okay? Jaylen Brown remains the emotional engine of this team. He's my X factor. After Boston's lackluster loss in Charlotte, it was Brown who acknowledged the Celtics weren't the harder playing team. Boston reasserts itself defensively. Tonight, Dallas may struggle to keep pace. Number three, Dallas needs a young spark, right? Their hope lies with Cooper Flagg. His stat line Thursday, 18.6 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 blocks, showed why the Mavericks believe he could become their centerpiece. If Flagg can push the tempo and create mismatches, Dallas at least has a fighting chance to hang around. Also, what to watch is Tatum's first few possessions. Not so much his scoring, but the movement. Does he attack the rim? Does he cut without hesitation? Does he elevate with confidence? Those subtle details will tell me far more than the box score. Tonight's pick and play on paper, this is a difficult matchup for Dallas. The Mavericks have struggled mightily on the road, 7-21 away from home this season. And while Boston has been strong at TD Garden, with or without a full workload from Tatum, the Celtics simply have more reliable scoring options. I'm taking the Celtics tonight. Boston controls the game defensively. Tatum is going to contribute in limited minutes, and this crowd is going to leave encouraged by what might lie ahead for the Celtics' postseason hopes. And yes, that could include another NBA championship. That'll do it for me. I will see you at halftime. We send you now to the TD